Continuing our story, we actually have the Avengers in the medical bay, I guess you could say discussing on what to do going forward, what to do with the Maximoff twins, so on and so forth. And Falcon says that maybe we could throw Deathwing at him, but he doesn't really think he'll be able to or be willing to join us in this, I guess you could say, in the fight itself. However, Cap makes a counter proposal here that if he didn't want to join us, he would have simply, what's the word I'm looking for? He would have flown off. And Tony agrees with Cap here, saying that he could have left at any time. Matter of fact, he could have just killed Thor right then and there and then killed the rest of us. So in all honesty, he's probably not that bad of a person. But they also wonder, why does he hate Thor so much? Why does Thor have such a vendetta? Or at least why do they have such a grudge match against each other? But right now they can't worry about that, as they have to prepare for Strucker. And Neltharion kind of sits there in the medical bay, staring at Thor, and he thinks to himself, he could have killed him. He could have torn him apart. He could have smashed his head into his hammer. So many things, but he was right. What would Elsa think of him working with someone like Strucker? And then it pans over to Wanda in his mind. Why does he feel for her? Why do they feel so connected? They're two hearts just wanting each other, but they've just known each other for, I guess you could say, more than a couple of days, and they felt like they've known each other their whole lives here. However, his thoughts are interrupted when a blast goes through the Avengers mansion, and as he, Captain America, and Iron Man run to it, we then see Baron Strucker. I did change the armor to the Uru look, though, because I just wanted it to feel more menacing, more powerful, though. It's still made of vibranium and some symbiote aesthetic. Iron Man is in his Extremis suit here, and this is where all three of them, and Falcon, apologies, all four of them pretty much walk in, and they see Strucker, Wanda, and Pietro just waiting for them. And this is where we kind of get the whole, the classic villain speech. I mean, come on now. This is Baron Strucker. This is a Hydra goon here, okay? This is a top head of Hydra. You don't think he's going to give a villain speech? Then I have to look at y'all and say, yeah, y'all wrong. Y'all lying. Y'all lying to yourselves even. We already know how these villains go. They give this, end of the world Avengers speech. And Tony is simply just scanning the armor, looking for any weak points. And he can detect something, but it's not natural to him. It's just, the armor is just super over the top here. And just as Strucker begins to fire a very powerful energy blast here, he gets immediately bull rushed and tackled here. Strucker does manage to, get the blast off here, but Deathwing is able to bull rush and pretty much just tank that blast, pretty much preventing anyone else from getting hit. And he pretty much just grabs Strucker and spiral dives him into the street here. Strucker tries to get up and flies off here, but Deathwing is overpowering him and the suit here. Strucker is trying his best here, using Repulsor Blast, using symbiote tendrils to try and restrain him, but Deathwing is able to simply just burn it off, and again goes for a signature seismic toss here. However, Wanda immediately steps in and pretty much blasts Deathwing off of him here. Deathwing is able to recollect himself and simply stares at Wanda. He doesn't want to hurt her. He even declares this. He doesn't want to fight her. He doesn't want to do anything that would harm her. And Wanda, pretty much just allows him to get in a striking distance, and says, "Don't worry, I know you won't." And this is where we actually see her use her, I guess say her chaos magic or her reality warping powers or her telekinesis. And in a comedic fashion, Deathwing gets a truck slam to him by Wanda's telekinesis. Deathwing gets up and honestly just looks in utter shock as that truck pretty much hit him at a surprisingly fast speed here. This is when both Deathwing and Wanda then just fly at each other, throwing around chaos magic and magical fire with a hint of magical lightning, obviously, or dragon magic, if you will. And downtown, or at least a couple miles away from the Wanda and Deathwing fight, we have Quicksilver and Iron Man going at it here. And Pietro is tearing Iron Man up in this. He's grinding him against buildings. He then throws him around and stuff. Tony is still physically, stronger than him and stuff, but he's having a hard time hitting him. And plus, Pietro is getting in his head with how, Tony destroyed a lot of people's lives when he was in the weapons business. And this does affect his, aim, and does make his reactions a little bit more delayed, if you will. This is also where we go to Captain America and Falcon, who are in the Avengers Tower, making sure Strucker doesn't get to the medical bay. Falcon was actually able to seal it, but he's far away from Captain America now, who's trying his best against Strucker here. He's, this is a vibranium symbiote-like armor. He can't do anything. It can't do much to it except use his shield to defend and just use it to barely attack. He's barely even throwing it at him. He even tells Falcon that he might have to just leave him here. However, Sam is rushing his way through the mansion as quick as possible, trying to get to Captain America. And Cap is, he's trying his best here, but he's getting pummeled. But luckily that super soldier serum is able to, keep him in the fight long enough for Falcon to actually grab him and fly him out the building. He even tells him he doesn't know how long he'll be able to, hold off in a dogfight with Captain America being something of a primary target for him. And Strucker immediately closes the distance between him and Falcon. And he's about to unleash the most powerful unibeam he's ever had, until War Machine comes in just in the nick of time here. Considering War Machine and Iron Man pretty much have the most combat experience dealing with foes and threats in armor, especially if you read the MCU comics here. Rhodey doesn't waste any time, pretty much just putting his experience putting his experience against Strucker to its fullest here, and actually gets the upper hand on Strucker during the fight here. However, again, Strucker still has the more powerful armor, and he's able to get in much more lethal blows, to which Rhodey has to play more evasive here. Back with Wanda and Deathwing, Wanda can tell that Nefarian is holding back against her, and she takes advantage of this. The clash between their magics is actually shown here, as Neltharion actually is playing more defensive than offensive. And Wanda takes advantage of it and begins to overwhelm him slowly. However, Neltharion hears a voice in his head. "You disappoint me, child. You have my blood in you, and you're losing to someone who's never been as powerful as you." These words reach Neltharion here, and Neltharion unleashes a fusion flare accidentally. He sees this, and it actually does punch through Wanda and pretty much just knocks her back completely. He then unleashes a fire vortex, a move he hasn't used in years, around Wanda, and this actually drains the oxygen around her, causing her to collapse here. He then launches another fusion flare, but in the opposite direction, hitting Strucker in the back. This actually harms the armor, and it's not able to absorb the kinetic energy, at least as much as it should here. War Machine then takes advantage of this and puts Strucker in the ground with a powerful unibeam, actually thanking Neltharion as the two pretty much just meet up together. This is where Strucker is hit in the back by Mjolnir. And this is where Deathwing and Thor both stare at each other for a bit here. But Strucker interferes before they can even get I guess you could say, any form of words out towards each other. And he actually begins to, hold his own against Thor. This is still a vibranium suit here. It's still able to absorb and direct the kinetic energy back at his opponent with a little bit of Stark tech and a little bit of the symbiote he found earlier. And this is where, Thor and Strucker actually have their own little one-on-one until Neltharion simply interferes and rocks Strucker here in his armor. This actually sends him flying, and actually he's able to dent the face mask here. This is where Neltharion actually turns to Thor and actually tells him, "Once this fight is over, we're going our separate ways. I can forgive you, kinda, but I can't, forget what you've done. To which Thor simply nods his head in agreement and says, "Aye, then let us end this battle together." Both Deathwing and Thor charge at Strucker and actually start throwing around a lot of their storm magic and combining it here. This actually cuts off the feedback from the Mind Stone and allows both Wanda and Pietro to get free here, as they simply join the battle against Strucker as well. And Iron Man, flying right behind Quicksilver, tells War Machine to hit him with everything he's got. So we see Iron Man and War Machine pretty much blasting repulsors from the sky, as both Thor and Deathwing here, pretty much burn and electrocute Strucker, as Quicksilver adds on to the tornado, or at least the vortex that has been created around them. And Wanda, using her powers, is actually able to rip the Mind Stone out of Strucker. This is where Deathwing fully goes for the killing blow here and actually grabs Strucker and puts him in a full Nelson, as everyone simply stops their attacks here. Neltharion then flies into the air with Strucker now pleading him to not do this, to not harm him. And this is where even the symbiote itself falls off of him, as Neltharion actually gets higher and higher into the atmosphere. And this is where he unleashes a fire vortex, this fire tornado around him and Strucker, and it melts the vibranium armor into Strucker. And it actually just forms this, I guess you could say, metallic skeleton, as it drops to the ground with a loud thud. Captain America says, while that is one of the most disgusting things he's ever seen someone do, he applauds them for their efforts and offers both Wanda, Pietro, and Neltharion a place on the Avengers. However, as the three of them regroup, they actually just decline this time, meaning that Cap won't have Wanda or Quicksilver for any future Avengers. And this is where Tony simply asks them where they're going to go here. This is where Deathwing begins to transform into his more draconic-like state. And this is where he tells them away from them. They still have their grudges they need to work out. They need to, I guess you could say, mentally and socially heal themselves with what they've done. Plus, they don't think being an Avenger after all that's happened, especially with Neltharion probably still working with Thor, possibly working around Thor, he just doesn't feel like it's right at the moment. This is where we actually would see Wanda and Pietro pretty much be in Deathwing's hand as he puts them on their back, and he simply flies off wondering who was the being inside of his head. We would then end this chapter off with Captain America going to a bar, and he's discussing about this trio here. They seem to share these very similarities to the rest of the people that Captain America is talking to, and he wonders if he could help him. And this is where we would actually see that Captain America is talking to Professor X here, and actually states that he's more than willing to go out of his way and help them. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. Yes, this means there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of changes to the MCU as a whole here. Adding the X-Men earlier on here. And again, having Neltharion, Wanda, and Pietro being confirmed as mutants a bit earlier. But this will play a role in things like Civil War, which will be very different as, pertaining to this. And I will be diving into Days of Futures Past and Civil War kind of mingling together here. But hey, that's going to be all today, you guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace.